Rangers fans, welcome to season 4 of Liberty Blue, the essential New York Rangers podcast powered by Believe Network. I'm Andrew Chelney. That's Nick Zararis. We'll get into Adam Fox going on LTIR, what the Rangers are going to do moving forward, and the Rangers continuing to lay eggs at home, a whole lot more. Nick, oh boy.
Worst case scenario, short of Shesterkin getting hurt, this is about the most irreplaceable player on this team. And I know we spent a lot of the 2010s being very grateful for Ryan McDonough, who was a really good NHL player, somebody who's carved out a really nice career, still playing at a reasonably high level over the last four or 5 years, his 1 year in Nashville notwithstanding. But this is an irreplaceable player. Colorado loses Makar. Quinn Hughes misses time in Vancouver. That's the caliber of player who's out. And while Gavrikov has fit in well, while I think they've gotten pretty good team defense as a whole, the big issue, and we'll spend quite a bit of time on this, nobody really moves the puck from the back end all that efficiently. The alley-oop out is great every now and then, but if you are just working your ass off for 45 seconds to a minute and a half at a time to win a loose puck, only to have to immediately to turn it over to create some space to give yourself some breathing room, you're going to have a hard time. And as we've discussed pretty frequently throughout the first few weeks of the season, 2 months now, we're in the first week of December, the Rangers don't get to offense enough. Just in the offensive zone with possession of the puck, they don't get there that many times a game. And when they do get there, they don't generate a lot of offense when they're there. So we're going to stunt the amount of opportunities they get. And even when they do gain the zone at the low rate they do, they don't generate a ton of offense. So every part of this operation is going to need to adjust to account for this. And it's probably going to lead to some ugly hockey. There's really no other way to say it.
Well, think of it this way, right? And we'll go through the list here. Can Gavrikov move the puck well and generate offense well? Not really. Can Susie do it? No. Can Borgen do it?
Sometimes.
Occasionally. Let's just say occasionally. He can't do it with the confidence that obviously somebody like Fox can do. But, like it's above zero, which is better than, some other names that I'm gonna list out here. Can Schneider do it? Not really. He doesn't have a whole lot of confidence at all when he has the puck on his stick in any situation, regardless of what zone he's in. Can Morrow do it? Yeah, but the Rangers currently do not trust him with ice time when Fox is there. They're not really going to trust him when Fox isn't there. I mean, they're going to have to move him up, I would think. Maybe they give him the power play 1 spot and see if he can quarterback that. And maybe it's Scott Morrow on the third pairing, but power play 1 quarterback just to see if, he'd be comfortable in that. And then maybe ease him into top 4. We'll see how that goes. Can Vakanainen do it? Oh, they'll make me laugh. Can Connor Mackey do it? No, so there's not a whole lot of defensemen for the Rangers that can move the puck. So the question now becomes, okay, well, the Rangers weren't all that great with Adam Fox. So what is going to happen now? And, one of the things that, we'll get into here in a minute, but I kind of wanted to flip this idea around now is, I wrote this article about the Islanders a few days ago where, I talked about potential trade opportunities and potential names for them to go after. And one of the names I mentioned was Pavel Mintyukov, who doesn't want to be in Anaheim and, by all accounts is having a pretty abysmal year in Anaheim and for the Ducks. And, he's an offensive guy and he's a buy low candidate because he doesn't want to be there. The Ducks clearly value other players over him. Is that an avenue for the Rangers to take? And if you do that, then, well, you gotta move some people around. It's an option, not just for short term, because Adam Fox will be back this season, but also he becomes a second defenseman that doesn't treat the puck like a hand grenade, which is very useful in your top 6.
So going off of that, I think that's the right idea. I'm not necessarily interested in short-term rental. I'm not really interested in adding to this team. Nothing this group has done through the first 2 months of the season has deemed them worthy of adding. Generally speaking, we look at trade deadline additions as a reward, a reinforcement for the group based on what they've already done and some of their deficiencies. Now, if we're going over into that, the island of disgruntled pending restricted free agents, there are opportunities there. Those are buy low candidates who need changes of scenery, who need ice time. The question then becomes, are the Rangers willing to give a player who is at that unproven the type of workload that would be commiserate with coming into this team? And that's where I think a lot of the speculation about, well, they could target player X, player Y becomes an issue, because as we've seen so far this season, they've been very reticent to shake things up for any extended period of time. They have consistently gone back to their baseline. And I'm not saying that's right. That's just what they have done so far. Well, I do agree with you. That is the type of player you want to be targeting, just as far as disgruntled, upside skill set, not a ton of sticker price value, so it probably wouldn't be a crazy trade. Maybe there's a right-handed D for left-handed D to be made there because the Rangers have more right-handed guys than left-handed guys.
I would imagine the Ducks would want Braden Schneider, and I would imagine the Ducks would want I don't know if the Rangers would want to give up EJ Emery. Maybe they'd want to give up Matthew Robertson.
I think lower than that.
Maybe Matthew Robertson would be a potential name.
Maybe a Berard.
Because you gotta think of it this way. Yeah, maybe Berard. I mean, the for as disgruntled as Mintyukov is, he was a top 10 pick 3 years ago. So the Ducks are not going to just give him away for nothing, despite him not playing well and despite him being upset. Right. So, you are reaching out to the Anaheim Rangers per se. Like, there's that relationship is strong between the two GMs. So maybe there's a little bit of leeway that can be had there, but you're not going to get Mintyukov for a bag of chips and, a Chipotle gift card. Like, you gotta pony up something in order to get a 22-year-old top 10 defenseman, even with all of his struggles this season, which I think is more of him just being upset than a trajectory of what he's going to be. So you're gonna have to move something, and I would think Schneider plus maybe Robertson, maybe Othman. Like, that's the missing piece for Anaheim. If that gets it done, there's an opportunity here to buy low on a 22-year-old player and inject some youth into this team into a team that desperately needs it.
So as far as Fox's importance, I've got a few stats for you. Number one, he's contributed on 37% of Ranger goals this year, 26 out of 71 points, the highest of any defenseman on the team, second highest player on the team behind Panarin. At this point, the Rangers at 5-on-5 have scored 48 goals. They've conceded 42. In Adam Fox's minutes, they've outscored opponents 23-14. With Fox not on the ice, the Rangers have been outscored 28-25. The lowest goal share Adam Fox has ever had in a season as a pro, 53.9%. That was 2021 into 2022. 26 points in 27 games, on pace for about 80 points. The next highest defenseman on the team in points is Gavrikov with 11. Workload, 20 minutes per game at even strength, 3 minutes and 6 seconds per game of power play, 41 seconds of penalty kill time. Oh, and 40% of his ice time is against the other team's best players. Invaluable as far as workload responsibility. This is one of the most taxing workloads. 40% of his ice time is against the other team's best players, and they are still winning those minutes 23-14. That is a dominant hockey player driving play from the back end, and it's been one of the real conversation points of the season so far. When one line can't get going, when you only have one forward line going, and it's largely because Fox is augmenting them and the other lines don't have that benefit, you are going to see a fundamental reorganization here. And then real quick, Morrow does not have a huge NHL track record. Right now, he's playing 13-28 per game at even strength, 8 seconds of power play time. And then real quick, when you go look at his hockey card, he's got 85 professional hockey games under his belt, and that's the AHL mostly. He's got a handful of NHL games, some playoff games with Carolina last year, a few now with the Rangers. I don't see a path to him jumping him in immediately to where Gavrikov is. I think that wouldn't be the most fortuitous. I know, generally speaking, we pound the desk pretty hard here, give the young guys a chance, let them sink or swim and figure it out. In the case of Morrow, someone who definitely struggled in the playoffs for Carolina last year against Florida, who doesn't really know his size yet. He's not a small guy, 6'2", 210, 215, but he doesn't really use it in a way that you would expect of someone with that profile size-wise. So I think the play for easing Morrow in here is like you said, we're going to ease you in on the third pair. You should quarterback the first power play. I know this morning in practice, they were running the 5-forward alignment on the power play. I'm not opposed to that either. I think you got to be willing to consider things outside the box. I know the Kings have had a lot of success with it over the last year and change, running that 5-forward power play alignment. Granted, having Fiala, Kempe, having pure shooters at multiple flanks really opens things up for them. The Rangers don't necessarily have a conventional trigger man in that way. Panarin running the point is probably going to work out fine. You're not going to have as much. You don't have to move a whole lot running the point, and he's agile enough. He should be okay. But this is a real issue. This is a fundamental flaw within the system. Teams do not have the capacity to replace players of this caliber.
Yeah.
Yes, they got a good 3-4 weeks out of Eric Gustafsson 2 years ago, but that was only a good month. And granted, great month. Gustafsson was a point-per-game defenseman in that month, running the power play, playing top pair minutes. But right now, it is going to be a real slog for a team that has struggled offensively, and for all of the people who have spent the last 2 years saying, well, if Adam Fox is so good, how come the team sucks? You're about to find out.
You're in for it. Yeah, you cannot. It goes back to what we've been talking about. Like, if you genuinely think Adam Fox is not a good hockey player, if you genuinely think Igor Shesterkin is not a good hockey player, then we fundamentally are watching different sports. We're watching different players, we're watching different sports. Like, this is not a conversation that is going to go anywhere, because it's impossible to convince somebody that refuses to believe what's in front of their forget analytics. Just watch him play. Just watch. And if you watch this man play and the conclusion that you reach is Adam Fox, Igor Shesterkin, whoever it is not good at hockey, I go watch a different team, genuinely, because there's no world to me in which you watch Adam Fox on a game-to-game basis, and some of the stuff ends up on a score sheet, sure, but it's a lot of the little things. Watch his stick position, watch the way he's skating, watch the way he's approaching the enemy, the players on the other team. Like, watch the way that he just plays the game. Watch his IQ. He's reading the play before it even happens. These are insane traits to have for a defenseman, and not a whole ton of people on this planet have all of the skills that Adam Fox has, and it's wrapped up into one player, and he's on this team. You better appreciate this man, and if you don't appreciate this man, get ready, because you're gonna watch this team without him, and it's not going to get better. That's it's. People are like, oh, well, because there's a lot of discourse right now in the NBA because, like Trae Young, who's Atlanta Hawks' best player, has been out for a few weeks, and the Hawks have been playing real well.
Yeah, Ewing theory. We're all well versed in Bill Simmons theology. Your best player goes out, the rest of the team picks up the slack. Yeah, Ewing theory worked once upon a time in 1999. Every now and then the team does come together and galvanize. The problem is we're not talking about like a playoff run. We're talking about another 50 games to go.
Yeah.
If it were round 2 of the playoffs and the Rangers had been through the wars and they had a really accomplished regular season, you could convince me they might be able to survive a week or two without Adam Fox. We're talking about a month, and I don't know exactly what it was. I think it was 37, 38% is the Rangers playoff odds right now. If Fox misses a month, that number dives down into the 20s. We are talking about do or die hockey, and it's December 1st. This is not exactly where you want to be. And again, I really want to emphasize teams cannot account for this type of loss. You want to insulate depth-wise as much as you can, but there are 5 to 10 defensemen on the planet who can play the position in the tier of Adam Fox, and that's not replaceable. And I know a lot of people are still, well, is he going to make the Olympic team? He wasn't very good in the Four Nations. We're talking about 2 games in the span of a week against McKinnon, Crosby, McDavid. I'll take the other 7 years of his NHL career, the playoffs where the Rangers have never been outscored in a playoff series with Adam Fox on the ice. The larger sample tells me this is one of the best defensemen in the world. Depending on where you were looking going into the weekend, he was as high as third in the Norris Trophy odds, depending on what sportsbook you were looking at. This is a world-class hockey player, and the Rangers are undoubtedly worse off without him. But, Andrew, as we often like to say, this is a golden opportunity. We've been talking about for 2 months now, who's going to step up? Who wants to make themselves irreplaceable? And that's the way you have to approach these situations as a player, as a coach. You're going to learn something about your team. With the quote from Dodgeball doesn't build character, it reveals it. Yeah, that's hockey. You're going to learn a lot about Braden Schneider, Will Borgen, Carson Soucy, Urho Vakin. You're going to learn a lot about everyone else in this defensive group over the next months without their best player. And this is a very piecemealed island of misfit toys defensive core that was put together over the course of the last 12 months because the general manager felt the situation he had previously was untenable. Now we're going to see just how good the guys he picked out are, because there's no hiding. There's no, well, they are figuring out who plays with who. These are all guys who have 6, 7, in some cases as many as 10 years of NHL post-draft experience under their belt, other than Morrow, other than Schneider. Let's see what you got, guys, because if you can play well, you might justify the team going out and adding at the deadline. If you can play well without Adam Fox, that's a strong message. But if it's more of the same, or God forbid worse, you're not getting anything. You're getting things taken away from you. That's the other side of this conversation. And I read it in both Peter's column, I read it in Vince's column, and I forget who the third one was. Now we can have real conversations if a month from now they are 7th or 8th in the Metro still, about Trocheck, about Lafrenière, about guys who are supposed to be part of what the next group looks like. But frankly, they're not getting any younger. And in the case of Lafrenière, very much need a change of scenery.
Well, even take a look at the schedule, right? Like even the next month of hockey, yeah, there's a couple of easy games, like maybe, right? Chicago, you got a St. Louis in there. They're both on the road, so you would expect the Rangers to actually show up to those games. But then you have the games at home, like they play tomorrow against Dallas at home, where the Rangers have continued to lay an eggs. Like I was I was media at the game against Tampa, and it was, the fans were booing the entire game. The Tampa Bay Lightning had,
it was a good college football Saturday. I would have been booing too.
The Lightning had like 8 players that genuinely, like I as much as I know, as much as I think I know hockey, as much as I think hockey. Pick some of these guys out of lineup. Like it'd be difficult to do that, and they skate like those guys, right? Like those guys that even like hardcore fans don't really know a whole lot about, skated circles around this team, which is embarrassing to say the least. But like it just adds to the list of things that the Rangers like either cannot or will not change at this point. It's been 2 months. Like at a certain point, you are what you are, and the Rangers cannot, for some reason, play anything close to NHL hockey at home. And it's weird because, after the game, I talked to Panarin about it, and he was emotional. Like you could see the emotion on his face. Like he was very upset. And he told me like they don't do anything differently home versus away. The mentality is the same. Everything's the same. The process to the warm up, like everything is the exact same. And yet they go onto the ice at home and they just don't play at all to the level that they want to play. And so it's just weird. So, you got Dallas, then you go to Ottawa, and then you have Colorado at home, who is, by the way, it's December 1st, and they have 1 regulation loss to this point. Okay, and then back to back, you're playing Colorado, then you're playing Vegas, right? Okay, you go on the road to Chicago, whatever. You got Montreal, Anaheim, Vancouver. Like, there's a couple of easy games here, or quote unquote easy games that should be easy games for the Rangers, but there's a lot of really tough opponents on the way here, and especially at home. I think 6 of the next eight games for them are at home. And like, let's say you lose 5 of those eight home games, or five of the 6 home games that you have. I mean, you're really digging yourself a hole that you just aren't going to be able to get yourself out of. And this is, you're doing it without Fox, and like if you do that, if you go in the next, this stretch here where you just cannot collect a couple of points at home, it's going to be a sell more than it is anything else. You're going to start seeing more players being sold off. I would have to think that if the Rangers lose a bunch of games here and you get closer to the deadline and they just cannot get out of this rut, that guys like Panarin are going to get traded because he's going to be a free agent and his future's in question. The Molly Walker article that he might go to Russia next year. Who knows what the story is there with him. Maybe Lafrenière gets traded because maybe he needs a change of scenery. Like there's a lot of bigger names that you can't trade Zibanejad, you can't trade Miller, you can't trade Trocheck, but like there's other names here that could potentially be on the move. That's going to happen if this next stretch here doesn't prove fruitful for this team.
I hate to be the bad guy here, but the Rangers right now are sitting in 7th place in the Metropolitan Division. The Rangers are the easy opponent. It's hard for us to get to say, oh, well, they got some easy games coming up. The team stinks. And as much as we would like things to turn around, this is what they are. For the last 2 weeks now, we have said the longer they play like this, the more likely it is this is what they actually are. And you can do the Jekyll and Hyde home and away thing for oh so long. You don't have Fox now. You don't have your most important skater. You are already struggling to score. Your power play, which was struggling with an elite player like Fox, doesn't have that in the coffer anymore. And most importantly, teams are looking at you as an opportunity to get right. They come into your building, they get to spend the night before the day in New York. They get to go get boutique $11 matcha. They get to get a nice hotel nap in. They come to the arena at 4 o'clock. They know it's going to be a library because every Rangers fan is sitting on their hands, nervous that the Rangers are going to lose on home ice again. And you lose that edge. You lose that, and home ice has become less and less important over the course of history. We've gotten better at making travel easier. We've got better at accommodations and making the recovery curve a bit easier where guys can start getting treatment on the plane, all of that stuff. But you need to be able to defend your home ice a little bit, and you have advantages. You have last change. You get the shorter change 2 of the 3 periods. There are opportunities there for you to take advantage of, and the Rangers aren't able to play to them. And then the other point I wanted to make, especially after watching the Tampa game, the Rangers are a slow hockey team. There is no getting around it. Other than Noah Labo when he skates in a straight line, there's no foot speed on this team. Nobody here is able to create space for themselves with speed. They can't really gain the offensive zone with speed. That's more bobbing and weaving, agility. And without foot speed, you have to have the utmost discipline in upholding and maintaining your system and its principles. The second that structure breaks down as a team with no foot speed, you cannot recover. You cannot get back into position. And like Saturday, you spend the entire game chasing the puck. You spend the entire game 1 or 2 beats off, and over time, you keep getting that snowball. I know you haven't played NHL in a while, Andrew, because they don't make it for PC. You remember Ice Tilt back in the day where it felt like no matter what you could do, it wouldn't come out?
I have a PS5. I just, the game is $60 or $70 now. And it's
on sale for $35. All the EA games the EA games were on sale over the weekend for Black Friday. So they got some buyers.
I'm running to get the next game that's the exact same as the one that I have from a few years ago. Sprinting, actually. But yeah, I mean, like, listen, the Rangers, like, half the game was over. They had 4 shots on goal. 53 minutes into the game, they had like 7 shots. Guys.
Those aren't the New Jersey Devils from 2002 down there.
Guys, the Tampa Bay Lightning, their bottom 6 had guys that me, as somebody that watches hockey every single day, has no idea who these people are. Like, for all intents and purposes, like, this is I'm exaggerating a little bit, but like, these are essentially creative players in their bottom 6. And you, like, JT Miller and Lafrenière and Brodzinski and all those guys, they're letting those guys skate circles around you. The guys that you and I have never heard of, the guys that, like, it's one thing, like, okay, like Brandon Hagel scored, 2 goals and Kucherov had a big game. Like, it's one thing for those guys to do it because those are the best players on their team. Like, you expect their best players to show up like that. It's another thing to have, some guy that you never heard of keep the puck away from Alexis Lafrenière the entire time. That's like, it just, Lafrenière or Zibanejad or whoever, insert play here doesn't really matter who it is because they all didn't play well. But like, it really is a terrible sign when supposedly your best players are getting lapped by, I don't want to say AHLers, but just guys that you have no business being lapped by. Like if and again, it goes back to, if you're injured, stop playing. And if you're not injured, why are you playing like that? Why are you letting some guy that isn't Kucherov embarrass you at home? You're Lafrenière, you're Zibanejad, you're Miller, you're Will Cooley, you're whoever. And you're letting Zemgus Girgensons stand in the middle of the lane taking wrist shots off the post when there's no one next to him. You're letting Zemgus Girgensons lap you. Is that not embarrassing to you? Not like, no slight to Zemgus Girgensons, but like, dog, come on. There's no universe in which he should be standing out in the lane, like taking a smoke break and taking wrist shots with like 9 seconds to spare and just kind of look around because there's no one near him. Like, come on. Like, what are we doing here?
So what I would say in addition to that I do think is important, and we talked about this a lot in December and November of last year when we were trying to figure out what was wrong with this team. They were in the throngs of a death spiral that ultimately derailed their season, got the coach fired, got a few players traded. The Rangers, talent-wise, are not as bad as they have played. I think talent-wise, they should have a better record than they do. But when talent does not get channeled, when talent does not have the confidence to use it, you start to see fraying. And the way I describe it is the opposite of what happens when you're a good team. When you're a bad team, you find ways to lose. And it's not that the Rangers are actively trying to lose. It's that guys are walking on eggshells. Nobody wants to make a mistake. Everybody's playing tight. Everyone is overthinking it. We talk all the time about how Zibanejad went from an extremely confident player to someone who is actively scared of the puck. Someone who, anytime he gets the puck on his stick, he's immediately thinking, how do I get rid of this? How do I get rid of this? How do I not turn this over? How do I not kill the play? Go back and watch the compilation of goals from March of 2020. That is a dominant player driving the net, using raw foot speed, using his hands to create space, to set guys up, and taking no hesitation, no reservation in being an aggressive, authoritative player. Granted, that's 5 years ago now. I understand his foot speed isn't where it was, but the puck skills are entirely gone. The confidence of that player is non-existent. That, for all intents and purposes, that is a different Mika Zibanejad. That might as well be a different player, the way I think about what he was and what he is now. And when everybody on the team is so desperately hoping for just one guy to bail them out, come on, someone do something. Someone help us. Panarin, Zibanejad, whoever you're thinking of when I say that, you have so much dead weight on this team. You have 6 fourth-liners lining the bottom half of this lineup. You have 4 third-pair defensemen. There is not a lot of upside here. And the general manager intentionally built the roster that way, that there's not a lot of upside, but we're going to have a really high floor. We're going to be in every game. They're going to be close. They're going to be low scoring. And we think because of our goaltending, because of our new commitment to team defense, we will find a way to score enough. Well, it's December 1st now. They are averaging 2.5 goals per game, something in that ballpark. They are not producing offense to the degree they need to. It is making their defense more reliant, and you can't play perfect defense forever. You just can't. And I'm starting to say I'm out of ideas here, short of blowing this thing up, because on a talent basis, there's more talent here than they've played with. But if they don't use it, it doesn't really matter. You know, it's the tree falling in the forest and no one being around to hear it type deal.
Well, we talked about it going into last season where, okay, you won 1 million games 2 years ago and you are bringing back the exact same team, actually better on paper, because Blake Wheeler, who is the slowest skater in the league, is no longer on your team, and you're putting in Riley Smith, who is a objectively better hockey player than Blake Wheeler at that stage of his career, right? So the idea was that, okay, things aren't going to be as good as they were, but they're going to be a playoff team, and they're going to, they're going to build towards something. And then the bottom fell out, and they performed as miserably as they did last season. And now, it's better, I guess, than it was last season. I mean, they're not as embarrassing as they were, but I mean, the game against Tampa was incredibly embarrassing. So like, the talent is there, but if you aren't going to show it on a game to game basis, then what does the paper matter? What does the name on the, when you see the line rushes and you see what's going, you see what the line breakdown is, what difference does it make if you aren't going to play to the level that you know that you can? If McDavid, because I know the Oilers haven't been playing well, like if McDavid isn't going to show up and play like McDavid is, okay, well, the rest of the team aren't going to try to match that level of intensity. And then all of a sudden, the team looks as bad as they do right now at Edmonton. Like nothing is going well. Their goaltending is bad, and they're not scoring goals. They're not defending anything, and like they're looking a lot like Chris Knoblauch could get fired, which is insane because they went to the final in back-to-back years. Literally last season, they were in the final, and you look at this roster and you go, oh, wait, Chris Knoblauch's getting fired? Now, listen, I don't watch the Oilers. Like, I know you watch Oilers, so you might have more issues with Knoblauch than I do. But, if you zoom out for a second, you think like, wait, like what is the roster doing? Like, is it a coaching thing? Is it a talent thing? Is it both? Is it one or the other? And for the Rangers, it's you brought in the best coach that you possibly could. The system, by all accounts, has fixed, or at least tried to fix, a lot of the big issues that you had last season. Defensively, you look a lot better night and day comparatively, which is a big, I think, plus to Mike Sullivan and the coaching staff. And yet, offensively, you look like you're clocking in and clocking out, which doesn't make any sense to me. You look at some of the names on this team, and if Mike Sullivan can't get you to play, to the level that that you can, I mean, like, who will? Like, there's no coach. Like, you go through history, and like there's no name out there that could feasibly change this roster that much.
This isn't the 1930s. You don't have player coaches. You can't bring someone in here to change the vibe to that degree. And the other thing, and the last point before we move on, we'll talk a little bit about Parssinen and the roster management of it all. For Chris Knoblauch, that I think is partly because the Oilers don't have a lot of cards to play. We joke about the Rangers having a bad roster situation. The Oilers have 12 players who have some form of no trade protection. 12. Out of 20 guys you're going to dress on a game night, 12 of them have at least a limited no trade, if not a
masterclass.
Most of those aren't his fault, but yes, the ones over the last few years, so he's doled out quite a few. And you don't have a lot of cards to play, so you can't trade 3/4 of the roster, firing the coach and hoping that you bring in, I don't know, Pete DeBoer, and that mid-season shot in the arm juices you up, maybe. But by the way,
if Pete DeBoer was taking shots at Jake Ottinger, I can't wait. I cannot wait for what he has to say about Stuart Skinner or whomsoever they get behind in between the pipes. If he's taking shots at Jake Ottinger, guys, oh boy, I kind of want that to happen just because I enjoy that type of content. It's fun to me, but I'm also not an Oilers fan. But yeah, I don't think Pete DeBoer's the answer.
No,
for
of course
Edmonton.
Not. Changing the coach really has limited value. If you're like a GM, and the thing is, changing your coach is a political decision, like an internal political decision. It's a means of getting heat off of you and putting the blame somewhere else and buying yourself some time and hopes that a shakeup can coax better performance. Jim Montgomery worked out really well at the start of last year for St. Louis. At the point when he took over at his start. And then you look at where they are now. That is a short-term solution to a long-term problem. But speaking of short-term solutions, long-term problems, that brings us to Juuso Parssinen, someone who, for some reason, was given a multi-year contract, was given $400,000 or $500,000 more than the league minimum. And everybody seems to think that the gripe here is that the Rangers are going to take a $100,000 cap penalty. The problem here is this is emblematic of the way the Rangers solve their problems. The Rangers, I don't know if they long coveted Parssinen or if he was just a throw in to make money work going each way from Colorado. This is a player, healthy scratch by Nashville, healthy scratch by Colorado, healthy scratch by the Rangers. someone who, if Chris Drury genuinely saw a vision for on this team going forward, had him in the building for all of March. He was acquired on March 1st. I remember vividly. I was sitting down for breakfast when they traded VZ and Lindgren to Colorado. It was like 11:30 on a Saturday morning. They traded for him. They had him in the building all of March, half of April. 20 plus games, they could have gotten a valuation and a determination on what he was. So that if you like the guy, you could have offered him a contract, but he was healthy scratched. I want to say it was 10 games of the 20 some odd games he could have played in. The general manager was allowing the head coach to make roster decisions that weren't necessarily beneficial for the long-term trajectory of the team. And the general manager, very tactically, did not intervene. He did not interject the younger guys into the lineup the way we probably would have liked to, for whatever reason. And you could look at it in a number of different ways. If you want to put the tinfoil hat on, you could say he was trying to keep his nose out of it, so all of the blame could be assigned to Laviolette. If you want to look at it a bit more objectively, you would say the coach makes the lineup card, the general manager only picks who goes on to the options for said lineup card. But why was he given a multi-year contract? Why was he given a raise? And why was he on the roster? And I know he's got okay track record of NHL play when he's been in the lineup, but this is a nothing burger. And the Rangers did this with a few different guys in the offseason where they gave them raises that they didn't need. They gave them an extra year and created logjam issues. And it's not a lot of money, but I think it tells you so much about the way the Rangers think about player evaluation and the way they think about talent, because they didn't have a plan for him. They acquired him and had no plan for him. Not last year, not this year. You had a whole offseason. You gave him a 2-year deal, and there was no path to consistent lineup play. And I know the retort has been, well, they had no idea Noah Labo was going to be this good. Okay, he can't play the wing? He can't play third or fourth line, left or right wing? You look at the lineup that they're icing most nights, and you're telling me there wasn't a path to this guy playing 12, 13 minutes a night in the bottom six? And at least, hey, maybe he is something more than what you have. But I was going to say, obviously, the Rangers didn't put a lot of emphasis on his development. The Rangers don't put emphasis on anyone's development, so that's the joke's on me there. But
and by the way, I don't mean to interject, but like it's very emblematic of two different franchises when that Tampa Rangers game was really a big highlight as to how the two franchises operate, because you had, like I talked about earlier, a bunch of players on Tampa Bay that neither of us have ever heard of, out skating a bunch of the Rangers' best players. And that is a really good highlight to how well Tampa Bay develops their players, that they have these guys not only ready to play at the NHL level when they're called upon to do so, but also playing so well that they dominated the Rangers at home. Absolutely skated circles around them like it wasn't even close. It was an embarrassment for the Rangers. The Rangers had a first overall pick. They've had multiple top talents. They've had a number 2 pick, right? They've had, even Braden Schneider.
7,
they had Kravtsov. They had Elias Anderson. All of these guys have either not worked out, haven't reached their potential. There's been a little bit of glimmer, right? Noah Laba has been a success story to this point. Will Cooley has been a success story to this point, right? But okay, well, Braden Schneider's a first round pick, and okay, he's a 6th defenseman at best. Okay, sure. Anderson flamed out, Kravtsov flamed out. Lafrenière has spurts where he plays well, but he's a first overall pick, was supposed to be a game-breaking type player, and he's not that at all because it's for a lot of different reasons. So at a certain point, it really goes back to, what is Tampa doing so well that they can plug and play essentially anybody in their developmental tree, and they just fit well, that the Rangers aren't doing. And that's not a slight, that's not an attack. It's Tampa Bay is doing something well. The Rangers should look to that and say, wait, what are they doing? What if, what can we copy that? Can we steal that game plan? Can we maybe take some of it and tweak it to something that we want to do? Like, there are franchises like Tampa that do it really well. The Rangers, the last few years, have a track record of not doing the best with their young players. There should be an avenue to copying, I would say.
So what I would say off of that, number one, Tampa Bay takes its AHL operation very seriously. The Syracuse Crunch, generally pretty competitive at the AHL level, and the guys they produce turn into things. You look at the guys who were both foundational pieces of their cup run, guys internal, drafted, guys who reclamation projects in the case of some of them, and then most notably, they've had 10 plus years of pretty consistent logistical infrastructure as far as your scouts, your general man. I know Yzerman ultimately moved on. Brisebois has been at the helm now. Darsh moved on to the Islanders. But that type of institutional stability, it helps a lot. When you have John Cooper there for as long as he's been there, you can tailor your coaching points in the AHL level too. When you get up there, this is what he's going to expect of you. This is how you're going to be successful up there. And the Rangers have never taken their AHL operation particularly seriously. You go and look in terms of competitiveness and the players they have turned out and developed. I wish I had the notepad. I was working on something about this over the weekend, but I ran through the list and they've had maybe 5 notable guys pass through AHL Hartford in the last 12 to 15 years. And obviously that predates Drury, goes back to Sather, goes back to Gorton. But the AHL matters, and the Rangers have largely treated it like an afterthought over the last handful. I can't even say handful, over the last decade. And right now, again, they're in a similar boat, the Wolfpack. They're not a particularly good team at that level. They have a few interesting guys down there, but you got to turn your prospects into guys. Or, as we've said forever, if you don't like these guys or you don't think there's anything there, you got to trade them. And the longer you wait to trade your Brennan Othmans, the less he's worth. Because if he was worth something, you wouldn't want to trade him. And that's what happens in these staring contests, in these games of chicken. The Rangers could say the price is what it is. Great. If nobody meets it, that doesn't mean that's what it's selling for. You know, I think about the same thing with what Trot said last week about Ryan O'Reilly. Good luck. If you get a first-round pick and an A prospect for 34-year-old Ryan O'Reilly, take it to the bank, put your ski mask, and throw the gun in the river. I dare. By all means, do what you got to do. The Rangers are not in that boat. The Rangers desperately need to shake things up here, and we're out of coaches to fire. We don't have chips to trade other than prospects and draft picks. Our expensive guys are immovable because of no trade protection. I am leveraged for this moment. This is as difficult a situation to navigate as a decision maker as possible. There isn't a silver bullet. This isn't a stale voices. This is the roster is old. The roster is expensive. The young players you're bringing along are interesting, but none of them are impact players. Like Noah Lub is decent, but he's a third-line center. Will Cooley is probably a middle six winger. Those are not organizational shifting pieces. You need something to come in here and be a lightning bolt, something to ignite this group and light a fire under them. And Drury's tried. He's changed the coach a couple times. He traded for JT Miller. He's doing what he thinks is the way to get better results out of this group. At a certain point, this is what they are.
And there's no light at the end of the tunnel here because the Rangers don't have cards to play. You can't fire Mike Sullivan. You can't do that. You can't really shake up the locker room again unless, you know, because I know Panarin has a no move clause if I'm remembering correctly. So if he has a no move clause, okay, well, the only way you can trade him is if he waives, which I don't think he will until the deadline if the Rangers are not in the playoffs. I think at that point he'd be willing to do so. Maybe Zibanejad would be able to, willing to do it too if the Rangers are really bad again and it's the deadline and the pressure and there's so much pressure on Zibanejad that he finally relents and finally does so. Maybe Trocheck waives his no trade clause. There's some avenues towards getting out of this if the Rangers are bad again come the deadline. But I just, I first of all, I'm not hoping for that, right? I don't want to hope for that. I obviously want the Rangers to turn this around. But it almost does seem like that is the only path towards long-term improvements. Long-term, this is bad. This is how we're going to fix them because there's really no other path to this. And and this is not fun. It's not fun to think about that the best possible outcome, I guess, other than winning, 20 of the next 21 games would be if the Rangers were not good again, so that the players that have the biggest anchor contracts finally agree to be moved so that actual changes can start happening. Those are kind of the only two paths towards some kind of resolution for this team. And it's disappointing. Both are disappointing. Well, one of them isn't, of course. Like if the Rangers win every game, then great. Then we're gonna sing hallelujah. We're gonna gather around the campfire. The Rangers are gonna win every game and they're gonna win the cup. It's gonna be great. Obviously that's the ideal situation. We're not playing NHL where we can't turn the game onto easy mode and score 94 goals in a game and then just win everything, right? We can't do that. So given the track record of this team, you could expect more or less what we've been seeing for the past 2 months of this team, which is a middling team that probably won't win enough games to make the playoffs, especially if they continue to play as poorly as they have at home. And so, okay, well, if you can't do anything else, then I guess the best method to a solution is to just get to March, be out of the playoffs, and hope. Again, you're relying on external sources, what we've been talking about for 4 years now. You're relying on the external hope that these guys are going to want to waive their no move clauses and their no trade clauses and want to join somewhere else. And then hopefully now you're not even wanting, to get rid of the contracts. Now the hope is, you don't bring the same kind of bad contracts back. Because, okay, well, oh my God, you finally got rid of the bad contracts. Oh, it's a miracle. Oh, you just, wait a second. You're bringing in the same problem. Oh no, that's a twofold problem again. So there's a lot of ways that this could go wrong, but short of winning every game until the deadline, I just don't see a path towards short-term and also long-term success with the current roster the Rangers have.
So I will leave you guys with this parting thought as we wrap up the show. Depends on what sportsbook you look on, obviously. The lines are all going to fluctuate and move depending on a few different things. The Rangers are right now minus 160 to miss the playoffs. They are in the same cohort of odds as the Blue Jackets, the Flyers, the Winnipeg Jets, the Canadiens. And right now, let's do some quick back-of-the-envelope math. The Rangers are sitting at 13, 12, and 2. They have 28 points. So 13 and 12 is 25. So they've played 27 games.
Yeah, tied with a couple of other teams. I think Boston and Calgary for the most so far to this point.
So if you take 28 and you multiply it by 82, you get 2296. And then if you divide that by 27, you have the Rangers on pace for 85 standings points. 85 standings points is probably about 10 to 12 short of what the playoff marker is going to be. We would comfortably say if you want to make the playoffs, you need to record 95 to 97 standings points. That's usually what the second wild card or the 8th seed has been in the last 10 to 15 years. That means for the remaining 27 and 82, is that 55 games, you're probably going to need to play in the ballpark of 610 points percentage hockey. You need to be getting more than 6 out of every 10 points if you would like to make the postseason. Nothing about the way the Rangers have played so far this year indicates they are capable of playing 500 hockey points percentage wise, let alone 600.
Well, they will play 500 hockey because they're really good on the road and really bad at home. So it'll just balance out to 500.
And that's the problem. You need to win 2/3 of your games, pretty much less than 2/3, 60%. So 2 out of every 3, every few. The math is there. There are 55 games. There's 110 standings points available for them over the remaining 55 games. That is plenty of opportunity, but it's getting late early out there. It is December 1st. You are missing your best skater. You have no recourse to replace him. You are in 7th place. Something needs to change desperately.
Well, it's December 1st, and we've talked for weeks now about this is who they are if they don't play any differently. And, well, it's December 1st, and this is who they are because they haven't played any differently. If you continue to play this poorly at home, then go pack it up and go home. Well, I guess you already did because you play at home like you already have packed your bags. Like the game against Tampa was embarrassing. It really was. To have, I think, 8 or 9 shots on goal for essentially the entire game against a Tampa team that didn't have Hedman, didn't have like a lot of their players playing. It was Jonas Johansson was in goal. It wasn't even Vasilevsky, and you didn't make him do anything. It's, at a certain point, and I guess take a shot every time Nick or I say it at a certain point, but like, it's December 1st. You're playing like that 2 months in the season at home. There's until you show me something other than what you've been showing me, I will believe that this is who you are.
All right, that'll do it for this week's Liberty Blue. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or over on YouTube. Leave a 5-star review if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. We will talk to you guys next week. Maybe the Rangers will win some hockey games. Maybe they won't.
Later.